Running a little bit late tonight. It looks like do we have Van?
Vice Chairman is on.
I see Sean.
Van is here.
I'm here.
All right.
Okay, Van's here. George, Mark?
I don't see Mark here.
So Jess or Peter, which one of you, who's running the meeting today?
I'm running the meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you. Have you heard anything from Mark, Jess?
I have not, and I don't see him in the list of participants yet.
The magic number is 4 for a variance, right? 4 votes in favor,
Yes, it's 4-0.
4-0, right?
Yeah.
Kind of cutting it close without Mark.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, Pack, you're here, correct? I see your name, but haven't heard from you.
He did come on earlier, Sean, just before you came on, but
Okay,
I heard him at least.
let me text him.
I think
His iPhone is joining, so that must be how he's listening in. He should have audio in a second.
Yeah, I see Van's iPhone popping in.
Hello, can anyone hear me? This is Van.
Yes.
We
Loud
can hear
and
you,
clear.
we can hear you, Mr.
Thank-
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, folks, for being patient, having a little technical difficulty. We'll start the meeting right now. Welcome to TLO Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for May 24th. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting will not occur in person. You can join via smart device, phone in, call option. We'll move on to the agenda. Under continued business, there's none. Under new business, we have ZBA-2021-11. The petition is a variance. The applicant is Kanali Patel at 620 School Street. Lorenzo Arpini has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking variance approval to construct a second-story addition consisting of 2 residential units above an existing convenience store. The property is located in traditional mixed-use TMU zoning district and require variance approval under section 5.1 for the side yard setback and for any other relief required under a low zoning ordinance. Is the petitioner here this evening for 620 School Street?
Just before that, point of order, Mr. Chairman, I just want to note on the agenda that it lists Lorenzo Arpini as the applicant in the synopsis, but I don't believe he's the applicant. That was from I believe that must be just, that must be a.
Yes,
typo.
that was a typo we just noticed today as well. We apologize.
Yeah, I just to clear the record, just want to make sure that the applicant is actually Kanali Patel.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And additionally, before we begin, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that, I know where Chairman Perrin is absent, Member Narogi is absent, and I don't see Member Briere, or at least he hasn't checked in yet. So we have right now a four-person board. So any votes, just for the record, any votes that go forward are going to have to be 4-0.
Thank you for that, Mr. Callahan.
Provided Mr. Briere doesn't join us later.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Callahan, for that information. All right, so we'll adjust that petition, the clerical update on the official record. Is the applicant here this evening, Mr. or Mrs. Patel? Or is there a representative for 620 School Street this evening?
Yes.
He's on mute. Huh?
Good evening, sir. Can you
Mr.
tell a
Patel,
little
you're
bit
on
about
mute.
your project?
Yes, so we are adding one apartment unit on about 620 schools.
I'm sorry, can you just state your name and if you're here on behalf of 620 School Street, sir? I see Mr. Patel's on there, but he's on mute. So I just want to, whoever's speaking, if you could just state your name and address for the record that you represent.
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
My name is Kaniyalal Patel. I live in the 12 Forest Street, Lowell, Mass. 01851.
I'm sorry, could you mute your one
Yes.
of your, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your project on School Street? What are you trying to do?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I want to add one apartment above the store.
All right. Anything else you want to share with the board before we move on? Anything else you want to talk about?
Just everybody asking, so apartment and we have a space and access and we have enough parking. So I want to put the one apartment. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Bedroom.
Thank you,
You are-
sir. All right. So we'll move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Opposition? Opposition, hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open up questions or comments to the board. The chair recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. I mean, generally speaking, I think it probably would work as far as the apartment, the one-bedroom apartment above, but and I just know from the site plan and DPD. Well, actually, Mr. Patel, did you get the comments from the Department of Planning and Development about the project and what their position is, and have you had a chance to go over them?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have anything to reference? I know one thing that they brought up was the fact that the plans you provided,
Right.
so they provided plenty of parking. It appears that you make the zoning meet the regulations for parking. The dimensions of the parking and there's nothing laying out what the dimensions of the parking spaces are.
I have more than 10 parking. If you want, I can show you.
Okay.
I
You're
showed.
gonna pull up the plans?
I show the plan for parking.
Yeah, you show the layout of the plans, but they don't show the dimensions of the spaces.
I mean,
It's
what?
something we need to know.
I mean, those are like all because it's gonna be for the tenant use. I'm his son, Chris
Yeah.
Patel,
Mhm.
and I'm on behalf of him. So the surveyor, he any site plan, and he just put the parking space, but there's no dimension. So
I mean, if there's any requirement, but we have more than, we require 6, so we have 10, so we can make it as big you like. I mean, or we can cut down to just 4 parking space in the back. I mean, the tenants, has 3 bedrooms, so they're not gonna have more than 3 cars.
Mhm.
But they have plenty of space in the back, so.
No, I mean, that doesn't appear to be the issue of how many spaces. It just appears to be whether or not those spaces are dimensionally going to be dimensionally compliant. Also, whether the drive-through lanes for the parking are going to be dimensionally compliant as well. So normally we like to see those in the plans. I'll listen to my other fellow board members with regards to that. I mean, as long as I would at minimally condition it upon you providing new site plans showing that the dimensions of the parking spaces and the drive-through parking drive-throughs that are and that they be dimensionally compliant with zoning.
I'm gonna upload some of the picture of the back so you can see like it's the plenty of space. And once we do the construction, we'll have the dimension. I don't have anything right now.
Okay.
I'll upload so you can.
Okay.
Check.
Yep, no problem.
Just give me 1 minute. I'll upload it right now.
Look at the report. I'm going with that one. Recording in progress.
So I've been with the. Yeah. Yes, I. So here are the pictures of the back.
Yep. Okay.
So we're gonna do the landscaping in the back, and then to see all the payments that we can.
Yeah. No. I mean, I acknowledge. I see that you have plenty of space back there to put the number of parking spaces that are required.
I mean, whatever the city requires, dimension, we'll put make sure that much dimension, when we do the construction.
Mhm.
So that's way, there's no issue. Front
Yeah.
with
So as long as again, I'll listen to what my fellow board members' thoughts are on it. I mean, the relief you're seeking is fairly minimal.
Yeah.
But the concern there was some concern about the park that there being no dimensional, no listing of the dimensions of the parking spaces on the site plan itself, or
because
the dimensions of the drive-through in the parking spaces back in and out. And that's something that we normally would require to come on a site plan.
yes,
I'll take your word for it, at least for the time being, that you're gonna, those spaces are gonna be zoning compliant. But minimally, depending on again, it's gonna be depending on what my fellow board members say. If we go to a vote today, goes forward, I would ask the condition B that you provide new site plans showing that those dimensions, those spaces are dimensionally compliant, as well as the drive-throughs.
Yep. I will do that. Yep.
Okay. So, that's all I have to add. I'll listen to my fellow board members.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I have a couple of questions, but it looks like to me, and I agree with my fellow board member, Sean Callahan, that the application is incomplete. I would like to continue it and get a complete application rather than rely on the applicant to follow through on a condition for a component of the application that we don't have in front of us, and a significant one. I agree that this seems like a good use of the building to add to the housing stock and a good location for that to happen, abutting residential areas that are multifamily, as well as using existing pavement to develop this on. But I find that an incomplete application is still an incomplete application, and we'll be approving something with a substantial condition and trusting, which I'm uncomfortable with. I would like to see a complete application. So I'd like to ask Jess, why the site plan that we're looking at doesn't show parking dimensions, doesn't show setbacks for parking, and doesn't show the drive, access drive width, and isn't clear actually as to what the landscaping is.
I did not process this application, so I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, in any event, I think we've had this conversation before about other applications that we've received that have been incomplete. And, a couple of things missing maybe, but this site plan is really missing basic information that's required by the process for submitting applications for variances. So unfortunately, I mean, I wish if it was here and it was telling us exactly what the story is so that we could understand what the relief sought is, we could possibly vote on this tonight. But this relief that we're guessing at, as far as what you'd be asking for. So I think that the basic prerequisites need to be followed. And I personally would like to see this continued until we have a site plan that meets the prerequisites. And these items are clearly understood as far as what the relief is that you're asking for. Other than that, I do like the concept, and I think this is a worthy application to look at for being favorable on. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree with the fellow board members. I don't feel that it is complete from the standpoint of what we, would like to see. What the project would look like upon completion. I also noticed that there wasn't much in the plan for what the landscape from a green space perspective, how it would look. And I think that would be a great addition to the project. And if we had more information about the parking, the dimensions, have that in the site plan, as well as the green space and how you plan to utilize it, I think we would love to revisit that. The property itself, I mean, there is a lot of space, and it looks like you intend to utilize it well, but I agree with the board members. We would need to see, more detailed information. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. Mr. Patel, I think you heard the wishes of the board. I also agree that this is a good project. I think it's doable. It can be done, but there are certain requirements and prerequisites that need to be completed before things can move forward. So let's continue this matter. Do you need 2 weeks out for that revised site plan, sir, or do you want to go 4 weeks out?
2 weeks is good enough. Anything else? So I will contact the surveyor, and so I have to do the green space and the parking space, right?
All dimensions need to be shown on the
Yes.
site plan. Yeah.
Yep.
Including parking spaces and drive-throughs.
Okay, yep, no problem.
Dennis?
And I feel that any relief being sought needs to be clearly identified, i.e. setbacks for parking, drive widths. If there's relief being sought that you don't meet the minimum requirement for drive width, that relief being sought should be identified clearly. And any other requirements that are, we shouldn't be guessing at these variances that you're may or may not be seeking, so they should be clearly identified, please.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Callahan, Mr. McCarthy, and Mr. Patel. So 2 weeks out would be, if I believe my count is correct, June 14th. Can someone just confirm we have a
Correct.
meeting on that?
June
Correct.
14th.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Callahan. All right, so that being said, let's continue the matter to our next meeting on June 14th. Can we have a motion, please?
Am I acting as clerk right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for that. Thank you, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-11 for a variance at 620 School Street to be continued to June 14th.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Callahan. Can we roll call, please?
Sorry, I'm having issues with my mouse. 1 second. Member Peck,
Approve continuous to June 14th.
Member Callahan,
Approve continuance to June 14th.
Member McCarthy,
Approve continuance to June 14th.
Member Procope.
Approve continuance, June 14th, 2021.
All right, Mr. Patel, you've been continued to June 14th. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you for coming out and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next item under new business, ZB-2021-10. The petition is a special permit and variance. Applicant is EG Properties LLC at 95 Market Street. EG Properties LLC has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeal seeking special permit and variance approval at 95 Market Street. The proposed application seeks to renovate and redevelop second floor of an existing building into 3 residential apartments. The subject property is located in the downtown mix DMU zoning district. The applicant requires special permit approval per Article 12 for use and variance approval per Section 6.1 for relief from the off-street parking requirements and for any other relief required under a low zoning ordinance. Is there a representative for 95 Market Street here this evening?
Yes, two. There's 2 of us.
Good evening. Could you state your name and address for the record and just tell a little bit about your project, please?
Sure. My name is Anthony Nganga. I'm an architect here in Lowell. My company, the office is at the 1 Lancet, 175 Cabot Street in Lowell. I'm here with John Noto. John Noto is the owner of this building. He's owned this building since 2014. And just to give a brief introduction to John, John has lived in Lowell since 2008. He actually lives in downtown Lowell on Market Street. So he's one of the abutters for this project. John also runs a scientific company out of the Boot Mills. He's been there since 2019. Before that, the company was in Chelmsford. John is also a founder of the Lowell Mix, which you gentlemen may know was located in Lowell for a long time, and in downtown Lowell for a long time, and they just moved to Western Ave Studios. Also, just for transparency, I'm also a co-investor in this project. John asked me to join him in this effort to convert the second floor into residential apartments. And the driving force behind this is that he has had a challenging time getting tenants. So the second floor has been vacant for a few years. The first floor space as well has been vacant for a few years after
Uncharted.
Uncharted closed down. But he does have a tenant now who is supposed to open anytime soon. So, Mr. Vice Chair, if I can share my screen, I can present the plans that we submitted for this project.
Oh, yes, go ahead. That'd be great. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna go to the beginning. So this project, the property is on Market Street. On the left-hand side, it borders sorry, on the right-hand side, it borders an apartment building, which I believe, John, is a 4-story building. It's a 4 or 5-story building. And the footprint of the building is roughly 3,850 square feet. It's only a 2-story building with a full basement. The first floor is going to remain as commercial space. So we're not going to have any change of use to that. The basement is primarily just used as storage space for the retail spaces. So each side has a full basement that they use for storage. And then there is a stairway right off of Market Street, just a single stair that goes up to the second floor. That second floor has been used as an office and a makerspace for a long time. To the backside behind it, there is an alleyway where there is a fire escape platform and ladder that serve both the second floor and the roof deck. So there's a flat roof here. So what we want to do is we had considered doing just 2 luxury apartments, so one on either side. But then we decided that we want to provide some variety of accommodation and probably also different price points, whether we do rental or for sale. So we have one apartment to the left-hand side, which is front to back. And on the right-hand side, we're going to do 2 smaller apartments. All the apartments will meet the requirements for square footage. So apartment 3, you can see which is a smaller one, is close to 900 square feet. It's a single bedroom. The front apartment to the right is 1,050 square feet. It's also a 1-bedroom. And apartment 2 is roughly 1,500 square feet. It's going to have a bedroom all the way at the back, so it has windows. We're also going to provide a den. We're also going to provide sort of a sleeping space with a skylight up above because we have access to the roof. We also want to add an amenity to the residents here by providing a stair that goes up to the roof, and we will have a small roof deck. I've discussed this with the planning and with historic, and so long as we hold it far back enough that it doesn't show from the front, we should be okay. We haven't quite determined exactly how big the roof deck is going to be. We are going through unprecedented times in terms of the cost of construction, but this is an amenity that we want to give to the residents. Again, you can see the design on the right-hand side. So we plan to have a lot of the brick as much as we can. And we will talk a little bit because I know one of the comments was about the potential noise from the club next door. But if we can, we'll try and keep as much exposed brick as possible. We'll have all high ceilings in all the rooms. Roughly 13 feet is what we have. And then I'm showing here in section. So we would have exposed beams as well one of the things we'll have to do is add some insulation up at the roof. There is none at this point. And then the other thing that we have to do is the sound partitioning between what's happening on the first floor and the second floor. Before, when we didn't have a tenant on the uncharted space, we thought that we could go underneath and do some insulation, but now we already have a tenant who has already gone in there and done some work. So we've decided that we'll do all the sound insulation and isolation on the second floor level itself. So for that reason, we'll see if also doing like a radiant floor heating is an option, just so that, provide a better quality of accommodation for these apartments. So what we're looking at here is what the building would look like in elevation, which hopefully you won't be able to see this unless you're on the buildings across, maybe on the second floor of the buildings across. And you can see on the section here, this would be the stair that takes you up to, a little tower house here that brings you out onto the roof deck. What I'm not showing here is we would definitely have some rooftop condensers, but they're not any big size, and we'll hold them back as well away from the front of the building. I think that's it from our end.
Okay, thank you for that summary of the project. Now we'll move on to the public portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition?
I believe someone is,
opposition.
I do see someone is, Mr. Petrakis is here. I believe he was here in opposition. If I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
go ahead, sir. Just your name and
He's
address for the
muted.
record.
He's muted.
Oh.
You're muted, Mr. Petrakis. Mr. Petrakis, you're muted. There he is. You're it. Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry, gentlemen, for that. I'm kind of unfamiliar with this process. So first,
No, you're fine, sir. Just
uh,
can you just your name and address for the record, and then just whatever you'd like to comment on.
My name is Nick Petrakis. I'm the proprietor of the Blue Shamrock, the aforementioned club, and also the owner of 105 Market Street, the building. I hate to come out the term, speak against. I just have some serious concerns. I've been there over 25 years, and just as those other fine gentlemen gave a little bit background, the building that I moved into at the time was abandoned for close to 10 years. It was in total disarray. It was almost condemned, and my partner and I at the time, who has since moved on to a warmer location, spent a lot of money renovating it, building it up. I also understand those gentlemen's hardship, because being in the hospitality business, no one's had it harder than restaurants, pubs, bars. So, I mean, my family and I have suffered a lot over the last year and a half and barely held on. That being said, we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. But my concerns are their building, the upstairs is going to be used, or the proposed use for residential, abuts my upstairs room, which is used for live entertainment, whether it be DJs, bands, and I also have, functions up there. And when I opened up, I did my due diligence. I found a building that was in the heart of downtown. All my licenses are intact. I'm approved for music right up until, quarter to 2. Does it always go that way? No, but, that is my option to have. I'm not looking to do anything different than I've done for 25 years. I'm not looking to add anything. I just don't want to be put in a compromised situation, because I still plan on doing what I did do, what I've done for over 25 years. And I would sympathize with any tenants who wanted to live in that condition. I mean, when I worked at the State House, I would have to get up 5:30, 6 o'clock to take a train to go to Boston. And I know I wouldn't want to have music that loud next door. And I've seen attempts at soundproofing. It doesn't work. With all due respect to the people who are experts in that field, there's a low end to the sound, and I've become somewhat of an expert in sound only because I've dealt with it. And that low end, which is the bass, when you hear a car drive by, that boom, boom, boom.
We've lost your audio. Can't hear you anymore. Nick, we can't hear you.
Police will come down, I'll show them saying, you know, I have my licenses all in place, I have this all in place. And if it is that gentleman, which I just heard, who had Uncharted, then he'll know, because they had live bands in the bottom of his building, and I could hear them in my place as if they were playing in my place. But I expected it, because that's what I'm doing, that's what I'm zoned for. It's different because it was two commercial places side by side. In fact, we kind of had a reciprocal arrangement. I'd go in there, they'd come in my establishment, but I'm sure he's familiar with the business from owning the building. I'm sure he dropped in on his tenants. They had live music and they had rock and roll bands, and I could hear them clear as day in my establishment. Also, we have the which you gentlemen know as well as me, the Leo Roy parking garage across the street. It's not just my establishment that parks there. All the late night people park there, and there's people, you know, discussing where they're going to go next or what's going on. Again, I'm just taking it from the tenant's point of view. You know, we're trying to sleep and we can hear people talking downstairs or making commotion. So I just don't see how it's going to work. And I kind of feel bad because I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. And I know everyone's going through hardships, but I'm getting ready to reopen. And I don't want anyone to say, geez, you know, what can you do? Can you turn it off at 12? No, I can't. And I just want to say that now. No, I can't, because this is what I do. I've been making a living. And like I said, it's been by the grace of God. I've been there over 25 years. So, like I said, I did my homework. I didn't go into a residential neighborhood. I went in the heart of downtown. I made sure what my parameters would be as far as entertainment and hours and stuff, whatever. So I guess I'm just voicing my concern because I see a problem coming up with the tenants that are going to be there. They're going to want to sleep. They're going to want to rest. And I just don't see how it's going to happen opening up next to a club.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
Thank you for listening to me.
Can we,
So,
do you want us to respond?
Mr. Nagaga, let me just open up to the public if there's any more speakers. Then after that, if you wish to add any more additional comments, that you can do that. So
Okay.
let me just open up to anyone else wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition, hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Before we open questions and comments to the board, Mr. Noto or Mr. Nagaga, if you wanted to add any additional comments, feel free to.
All right, I think I'll let John speak briefly because he lives downtown.
Sure. So I live downtown. I live a block away from this building. I'm of course familiar with the Blue Shamrock. And I think, there's a limited amount of utility for the upstairs spaces these days. I think if we can't do a residential conversion, the building will have very little value. I also think that we can deal with the sound. There's two brick walls, the brick wall of the Shamrock and our brick wall, and they're separated by a small airspace. And I had a sound meter in there last weekend, and it didn't spike. There wasn't a terrible amount of sound noise bleed through. And in terms of downstairs, we did do some sound measurements downstairs back in the Uncharted days, and there wasn't a lot of bleed through from the Blue Shamrock into Uncharted. I'm surprised to hear there was so much from Uncharted into the Blue Shamrock. So I'm very cognizant of the noise issues. As a downtown resident, I've had my own noise issues. Of course, you live in a city and it's not going to be a quiet suburban street. And I think with the right tenants, the right owners, this would be a nice addition to Market Street. And, I think we can deal with the sound in a couple of different ways. And I'll let Anthony talk about the technical issues with sound.
You're right. So I don't think I can add more to what Jonah said. We actually made that attempt to do some sound measurements this weekend, but I know that definitely the Blue Shamrock is not up to where it's going to be when things open up fully. But I'm also going with the confidence of John's experience and the people that have the experience of living downtown. I think that there is demand for housing, and the people that choose to live downtown, they agree, because, for example, we could have the soundproofing or the sound not coming from the walls themselves, but actually from the windows, because the crowds are always spilling out onto the streets, especially during closing time. And also the fact is that we also have an alley behind there too that can get messy, especially when it gets dark. But I think we are confident that we'll be able to get tenants who, this is one of the things that they will be willing to live by. However, we intend to, if we find that we have a sound problem between now and the time when either we start construction or complete construction, is that we are going to measure the sound, and even if we have to come in here and spend some time during late night just to see how much of a sound intrusion we get. But when I was talking about, one of the things we want to make sure is that some of the intrusion that comes, especially between the floor itself and the walls, that we will definitely take care of. And, I think we have the advantage of being able now to put a subfloor right on top of the existing floor. So that whole joint along that wall and against the other wall as well will take care of that.
Thank you. Thank you for the additional comments. It's appreciated. So now we'll move into the comments and question section of the meeting by the board. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir. Mr. McCarthy, I think you're muted, sir.
You are correct. I was muted. Thank you for saying that. I'd like to just start by saying that I think that having residential units downtown in a location such as Market Street on the second or third floor is a great use of those buildings in that space, especially where you are in close proximity to parking in a parking garage. So this makes a lot of sense for its location and access to parking for me. The sound issue is a sound issue and is always going to be a sound issue in developing downtown where we have mixed uses. So I understand there's some work to be done by the applicant to come up with a solution, but this is the right time to have that conversation, and I'm glad it's being brought up because it's important to address and make sure that it's addressed in a way that is creating a livable space, if that's what we can grant tonight on the other side of the wall. That being said, I think that the plans make sense for square footage and use of the space. I love the amenity of the roof deck. I think that what we're being asked to approve tonight makes reasonable use of an existing building that otherwise is going to be hard to use for another type of venue or purpose. So I would like to see us grant the special permit and the variance, special permit for the use and the variance for the parking. I'm in favor of it. And I think that we can have a success here, as much as success can be had. But I think that we should look to go forward with this and not be afraid of coming up with creative solutions for sound, because that's always going to be a situation. Whether you're next to an airport, whether you're next to industrial facility, whether you're next to a rock and roll venue, there's always going to be a need to resolve it as best you can and to accept the middle ground. Thank you.
Can I address the board again? I
Sure.
don't know how it works. Am I allowed to do that or?
Mr. McCarthy, if you wanted to relinquish some of your time to a speaker, that'd be fine, but that's up to you, Mr. McCarthy.
I have no problem with that. You go right ahead. Nick, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Member. I just want to say, because when they said they haven't heard anything, well, I've been closed, so it's going to be quiet up there. You know what I mean? I've opened sporadically for a couple of events, but I mean, there's nothing going on up there. I can guarantee with 100% certainty that if I brought the board members in there, when my music is at the level that it's played at, not a single board member would want to have them or any of their relatives live there, no matter what kind of soundproofing there is. So I just want to go on record as saying that, because I'll put the music on and bring the ladies and gentlemen of the board up there and you know what I mean, and show you whatever. And it's not, it won't be a comfortable environment, especially at, 3 o'clock, I mean, when you're trying to get to sleep, if you're getting up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, all depending on what the work schedule is, no matter what amount of soundproofing you put up there, it's not going to work, because I've encountered it, not where I am now, but at other establishments, because I've been in the business for about 40 years at other places, and I've seen other places try and do it. And like you said, and I agree, if you live next to Fenway Park, you don't tell them, hey, no more night games. If you never live near the railroad, stop the trains from coming. That being said, I want to be able to operate like Fenway Park or like the railroads without any restrictions, because I'm already there. So if someone can benefit, fine, but I don't want it to be a detriment to me, because everything I have is tied up into that establishment. And like I said, I've been there over 25 years. So if a problem comes up now, first thing I'm going to say is, well, I didn't have a problem for 25 years. Why do I have it now? I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but after coming through what I just came through and worrying about how I'm going to feed my family and keeping a roof over our heads, I just don't want to see any impediments or any negativity now that, that I finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. So, I'm sympathetic to everyone, but I guarantee if I brought you gentlemen up there, and ladies and gentlemen, because I don't know all the members of the board and I can't see everybody. So, no one's going to want their family to live up there unless someone comes in and says, oh, can we compromise? Can we close? Can you stop earlier? I can't. And I want to put it on record, and I want whatever that I don't want to do anything differently, but I don't want anyone trying to curtail what I've been doing, because I've been doing it with some manner of success for 25 years. And thank you very much for relinquishing the time for letting me say that. I just wanted to say that I haven't been open. So when I do, it's going to be a different environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I agree with you that you haven't been open, and the sound levels are not what they will be when you are open. I don't think anyone's saying that this development is going to impact your hours of operation. I think everyone, at least from where I'm sitting, is thinking that your hours of operation are not going to change. And it's going to be on the developers of this 3-unit second floor to solve. And they'll have to resolve the sound issue and solve it on their own and not ask you to participate, because you are a known entity and everyone's accepting you and your facility and your hours of operation. At least that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree with Member McCarthy. I think this would be a great addition to downtown. I think it would, it would only help beautify downtown in a sense of, getting a population going. I mean, if the building has been vacant for so long, or, you have the opportunity to improve the space, I think it's a great idea. And I believe that the abutter, Nick, I think he initially said that he's not opposing to it. He just wanted to make his points known that it's quiet now, but it'll be noisy later. And I think there's probably people who live with that. because whether you live in Times Square or by the airport, you know what to expect. And I would trust that any tenant that moves into that space that the owner would set that expectation, so that it does not impede your business, but it also provides John the opportunity for revenue. And again, offering a space that the city needs, for residential. I think it falls within the guidelines of what what the city would expect for for the property. So I wouldn't have any objections. I would like to see this moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The floor recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my fellow board members, Member McCarthy and Member Prokop, with regards to this. The project itself seems workable, but when we get to, obviously, Mr. Petrakis' point about, he's been in business for several decades at that same area, and it's a well-known establishment and well-run establishment, Mr. Petrakis, if I might say, too. So, but it is, and yes, it is what it is. It's music, it's live music, it's loud, and yes, if there are residential units up there, it is going to be incumbent upon Mr. Noto or whoever else develops it into that to let any future tenants, or if it's turned into condos, I'm not sure, then know that this is what you're dealing with, and that's it. You're not going to, buyer beware in that perspective. So those are the thoughts I'm having. But one thing that I was thinking about though is like Mr. Noto and Mr. Nenga. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. Was there any outreach to the neighborhoods and to Mr. Petrakis? I mean, since he's here, about the project, and maybe this is some concerns that could have been alleviated previously, or maybe looking, even in considering at this point right now, since the Blue Shamrock has been on limited operations, not full operations like they were in the past with the live music. That maybe this is something to maybe look into further and maybe test out, presuming that things are starting to open up, and then we're going to get into a situation where you can do some more soundproof testing. Because it sounds to me like, at least from what Mr. Petrakis is telling us, that it's going to go. It may, if the intentions are for downstairs to be commercial and possibly another, uncharted. Let's just say that with live music, it's going to go both ways on each side with regards to the soundproofing. And Mr. Noto has said he was not aware that sound was leaking into the Shamrock, so from Uncharted. So is that something that maybe we can work with here? That maybe.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Cloud.
Yeah. That's. I mean, the question's directed to you guys. So, yeah.
So I mean, this is a long process. 1,000 steps, right? And we're on step 3. So I've not reached out to Nick at the Blue Shamrock yet. However, I would be, if he has some time and can crank up some music upstairs, I'd be happy to do some measurements in my upstairs with the sound meter and see how much noise is actually getting across. And we're going to look at this from an engineering perspective. I mean, I'm not sure, what else we could do with the space that would generate any revenue whatsoever. So, I mean, this is, it's a difficult decision. What to do with that space without doing something like a residential conversion. But I'm happy to work with my neighbors, of course.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking in that perspective, and also there's one other thing I was kind of wondering about too with regards to the roof deck, which would be a good amenity, I think. But I'm just unsure of what are the dimensions of the roof deck itself as far as the dimension, as far as the walls that are going to be like labeling people off and making sure. we've had these come up before us before, and not that not that I'm thinking that anybody's going to do anything stupid or whatever, wrong or whatever, but the fear, obviously, with the roof deck, you're going to think like, who knows what's going on up there, and maybe somebody, if the walls aren't high enough, they jump the wall and then do something else stupid or whatever, and then and there's a lot of liability involved with that too. And I don't see I see the roof deck laid out as far as the site plan is concerned, but like not what the dimensional parts of it with regards to, how it's going to be laid out on top, what the size of the walls are going to be, stuff to that effect.
Well, I'll let, can I answer that as well? Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, if you can.
So, I live in a building now, 181 Market Street, that has a good sized roof deck.
Mhm.
And it has, of course, not a wall, but it has a railing around it. And it's away from the edge of the building. So you can't, climb over the railing and then fall off. You'd have to climb over the railing, walk towards the edge, and climb over the condensers and then fall off. So it's so if you put it in the middle of the roof and you have a railing around it, that's fairly safe.
Yeah.
So specifics in terms of size and specifics, I'll let Anthony address that. But we've had a roof deck on this building since 2004, and we've had no issues with it at all.
Okay. Actually, I was unaware you had a roof deck up there.
A lot of people are. It's a nice roof deck.
Okay.
So just to add into that, we haven't worked out the details, but I imagine that at minimum it's going to be about 4 feet high, because it's not really a viewpoint over the safety wall, if you want to call it so. It's more a view out into the horizon. So we'll make it as high as we need it, but at minimum it's going to be 4 feet high. And just also to go back to the issue of the sound, we are definitely not brushing anything away in terms of the Blue Shamrock and the need for them to maintain their operations, without future tenants or owners complaining. And one of the thoughts, again, remember, John is a scientist, so he came up with a sound meter. My thought was, I'm gonna go up there in the middle of the night when Blue Shamrock is kicking. But John's gonna do that. And between now, again, I'm saying this is gonna form the decision on how we treat this wall. But also the other thing is, if you look at this plan, we probably will mirror this plan so that the bigger unit goes to the other end. And the reason for that is that so we don't have the bedroom against the Blue Shamrock. And what would end up is that these 2 bathrooms, the laundry, the kitchens, and the living rooms are the ones that would be against Blue Shamrock. And the bedrooms would be away from that. So we're going to do anything we can to address. And again, if we have to buff up this wall for soundproofing, we'll do it.
Okay. All right. No, it makes sense. I think, good fences make good neighbors, and it sounds to me like this is something that possibly could be worked out. But maybe, like I said, maybe this under the circumstances, at least for the time being. And I don't know, maybe it's something Mr. Petrakis can add in. You anticipate operations starting to kick in as normal with the reopening of businesses, Mr. Petrakis, to maybe do some testing with Mr. Noto on the sound.
By the end of not by the end of this month, but by the middle of next month, we should be, God willing, by the grace of God, we should be up and running at full capacity. But before that, I can turn all the music stuffs up there, and I can turn it on to levels that will be, conducive for them to judge what they're going to have to do. But I know from having served on my capacity when I worked for a senator on different boards, that a lot of people, they have the best of intentions when they start off, and then once people move in, it's like, oh geez, we didn't know it was going to be this loud, or geez, whatever. So I just heard everyone say there's going to be no complaints. I just want this. Now this is on record, right? This meeting's on record. There's going to be no complaints, no one trying to curtail or limit my business or whatever, because I just see problems down the road, and I sympathize with them. Because like I said, no one's fallen on, I won't say no one, but I've fallen on a great deal of hardship due to the pandemic, as most hospitality businesses have. So, I want them to take care of their family, like I want to take care of mine. But I just have some serious reservations, having been in the business and having known how hard it is to soundproof something. Like I said, not just from where I am now, but I've encountered it working for other people. And it's tough. I granted, I don't have the expertise of an architect or a scientist, but I've been in this business for a long time and have a lot of practical knowledge of it. So the things I heard that I'm going to fall back on is the owners, neither the owners nor the tenants, are going to have any complaints. I mean, of course, if they're with me or my establishment, because, well, geez, someone called the police and the police are down here, it was too loud. Or, geez, whatever, because the first thing I'm going to think of is, wait a minute, we talked about this before the thing was approved. So just from a layman's point of view, like I said, I'm not looking to do anything more or less than what I've been doing. But I've also spent money fixing up my roof. I've also spent money fixing up my floor. And again, by the grace of God, I've been helped out by friends who are in the business that I've helped out in the past, who have, like I said, I've been in Lowell my whole life. I live in Lowell. My brother lives in Lowell. I'm a long raised, born and raised Lowellian. So because of that, I've managed to form some friendships who came to my aid during this, during these hard times to help fix up my place. That being said, I spent a lot of money. It's owed money that I owe them. So I want to be able to pay people back. So I don't want to be curtailed at all. So those are my concerns,
Thank you, Mr. Petrakis. So my thoughts are, Mr. Noto, Mr. Petrakis, Mr. Noto, Mr. Ngaga, maybe my thoughts are maybe possibly continue this and get with Mr. Petrakis and try to see if we can, because I think in the end, then there'll be no question, whoever's up there, whoever the tenant, if it's disapproved and if this is approved and there are tenants up there, there'll be no question that all due diligence was done with regards to the soundproofing, and whoever is the tenant is, the future tenants are, I'm sure you're gonna make them well aware of what the situation, what all soundproofings were done. You're gonna be making them well aware of what the situation is, and at that point, it's gonna be, like I said, buyer beware at that point for the tenant. So my thoughts are, if thinking about possibly continuing this, so you can have that opportunity to talk to Mr. Petrakis, do the possible soundproofing test. Maybe you'll get some more information out of it, of what additional steps need to be done, or possibly redesign to maybe alleviate the concerns and go from there. So those are my thoughts. So I'll from there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. I think from my perspective, this kind of renovation or this redevelopment of the unit into like apartments actually makes a lot of sense. Mr. Petrakis, thank you for coming out this evening. I completely agree with your concerns and the future issues this might any hardship it might bring to potential people living in those units or those apartments. I do agree that the responsibility is on the owners, the current owners, the project managers renovating this building into the apartment units. I actually like Mr. Callahan's suggestion of just putting some more thought and effort into this. And Mr. Noto, Mr. Naganga, if you want to just touch base with maybe Mr. Petrakis and any other butters in the area in terms of, sound mitigation or just planning, that would totally make sense. So we're looking to continue this, Mr. Noto and Mr. Naganga. Do you want 2 weeks out on the 14th, or do you want 4 weeks out to the 28th?
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to understand what the continuation is going to do for the project. I think if it's an issue of redesign, I'm not sure that, apart from what I said about flipping these units so that the bedrooms are not against the blue shamrock, the building is challenged because it's just deep and narrow. you can see it's 77 feet deep. And then the width is just 50 feet. You know, the only other alternative we had was just to do 2 big units. But again, that doesn't alleviate the sound issue that we are talking about. And the way, what I'm thinking is, if the dealing with the sound becomes part of our design process, refining the design towards construction, I think that's the way we would probably look at it, rather than, because I don't know that we are going to propose any different use for this space.
I think the thought was, Mr. Nganga, that you meet with Mr. Petrakis, possibly do a sound test from, no, he's, even though he said he's not going to be in full business probably till the end of June, that he'll try to, try to do a simulated sound test.
Yes.
To maybe, so you guys can, on your end, figure out what, how it's coming over, what the situation is. And then from there, try to figure out if anything needs to be done as far as additional soundproofing or redesign if necessary on your end. But I think this is more in the lines of just making sure that both sides are understand what the situation is with regards to the sound issue. And again, you possibly maybe want to do one, if possible, if you're able to simulate it from the formerly Uncharted, because I don't know what's going in there, if it's going to do it again as line band, to going over into the Shamrock and see what's up, and try to, because Mr. Petrakis had mentioned that there was bleeding sound from when Uncharted was there with live music. So I think this was more, it's more of the lines of what, just trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and
sure,
this thing gets if this thing gets approved, which, I mean, it's a good project and a good repurpose for the thing, and it's possible that it's possible that it probably would get approved. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe you do this the soundproofing test, and then something comes up. I don't know, but I think we're just trying to find some middle ground here a little bit, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We got all the information that's set forth, at least with regards to the sounding, and then try to, again, alleviate it as best we possibly can. So in the end, if this gets approved and becomes residential units, there's no further questions in the end as far as the tenants are concerned, or whoever. Well,
okay.
It'll be best for Mr. Noto too, to just, so he'll be able to tell his tenants what they're gonna, what the situation is and what they're gonna deal with.
Yes.
And go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So-
Mr. Cameron.
Go ahead, Mr. Noto.
So just to be clear, is the sound testing sufficient, or would you want to see, a sound engineer's mitigation plan? I mean, how far do you want to take this before this sort of basic approval?
Well, I think this is more on the lines of you and Mr. Petrakis getting together and just working out how it is, and then then the next meeting. I mean, you guys do a sound testing. If you want to get a sound engineer mitigation involved, I'll leave that between you. We're not.
Okay.
I don't think we're not getting. I don't think I think it's more of lines of getting you both together, the parties together, to try to see if we can come to some common ground on this issue. And again, you might find you may have to do something different than what is expected, or maybe you won't, maybe not. I don't know. I think it's more of a lines of trying to get people together to mitigate this further and go from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's okay.
All right, you heard the wishes of the board. So we'll continue this matter. Do you want to go to June 14th, our next meeting, or do you want to go 4 weeks out to June 28th?
Nick, are you available to connect with John sooner?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you guys are anxious or whatever, so,
Okay.
can I give my number out over this thing so you guys can contact me? I don't know how that works. Am I allowed to say my phone number on this thing, or I give you my phone number? Yeah, and I have a pretty flexible schedule, pick my daughter up from school and stuff, but outside of that, if I can give my number now, you can call me up and I'll work something out with you. I just have to get the person down there who runs sound to set it up so that it'll be conducive for you guys to see what's going on.
You know,
Okay,
problems
if
with
you're-
it, but the whole public's gonna have it, Mr. Petrakis.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I don't know how that works.
Actually, Anthony, I believe your paperwork, Anthony, your paperwork's on the,
Yes. My phone number is there if you want it.
we can give you 508. You mind if I give it? I can give it to him, right?
You can give it to him, yes.
508, ready, Nick?
Wait a minute. And could you spell the gentleman's name for me too, just so I get it correctly?
Anthony, well, it's right there on underneath his,
Can you
Anthony.
see on my screen?
I can't see him. I can only,
Okay.
I have a limited screen. I can only see myself and the three of you gentlemen.
First name is Anthony. Last
Yeah.
name is N for Nancy.
Yeah,
G for girl.
yeah,
A for Anthony.
yes.
N for Nancy. G for girl. A for Anthony. Nganga.
Okay, I get it.
My phone number is 508
Yes,
375
375.
8159.
Thank you very much. And thank you, members of the board, for putting up with that. I know I'm like an old fashioned guy, but I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
That's completely okay.
And I will call you, Anthony, and I'll give you my number. We'll set up a time. So I
Okay.
can have the sound person down there, and
Okay.
I'll work with you gentlemen. You know, like I said, I'm not looking to, I want to help everybody. I'm in panic mode about after being closed for so long about being hindered in any way. So I don't want to
Okay.
come across as a bad guy in this thing, just a worried guy. So I appreciate all you gentlemen, all the ladies too that are present, because like I said, I can't see any, on my screen.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I think we'll ask for just 2 weeks.
All right, perfect, Mr. Nganga. So we'll continue this matter to June 14th. All right, can we have a motion to continue the matter to June 14th, please?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-10 for a special permit and variance for 95 Market Street to be continued to June 14th.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Callahan. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approved continues to June 14th.
Member Callahan,
Approve continuance to June 14th, 2021.
Member McCarthy,
Approve continuance to June 14th, 2021.
Member Prokop.
Approve continuance June 14th, 2021.
All right, folks, your petition has been continued to June 14th. Thank you for coming out this evening, and we'll see you in a few weeks on June 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next matter under new business. We have ZBA-2021-9 special permit. The applicant is Selco Partnership. The property is located at 47 Father Morrisette Boulevard. Selco Partnership has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking special permit approval to install telecommunications facility on top of the AR parking garage. The property is in the downtown mixed use DMU zoning district. The installation requires a special permit per section 7.6 and for any other relief required under the low zoning ordinance. Is there a representative here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tom Hildreth. I'm outside counsel for Verizon Wireless. I'm with the law firm of McLean Middleton, and I work in our Manchester, New Hampshire office. And I'm prepared to present an overview of our application. This is a city-owned 4- and 5-story parking garage, the AOT parking garage. It's in close proximity to the Saugus Arena. It's in the downtown mixed-use district. Verizon has had a contract with the city of Lowell since 2018 to develop wireless facilities on a number of city-owned properties, and this is one of them. And we're finally getting to the point of permitting this installation. This is kind of a standard setup for Verizon. This is a proposed what we call a 4-sector site, meaning that there will be antennas broadcasting in 4 separate azimuths covering different real estate over the ground. In effect, we're using 4 corners of the building. At each corner will be some panel antennas that are mounted flush to the building, and the antennas will be painted to match the material that they are mounted to. Those are the only elements that will be visible externally. There are some electronic equipment that is within the parking garage itself that drive the antennas, that switch the signals, that provide backup power, and so forth. There's a 12 by 16 foot, effectively kind of a parking stall size worth of equipment space on the 4th floor, and then a smaller space on the 5th floor. It's a 5 by 10 space. There was a question in the staff report that asked that, or suggested that the board confirm that the highest height of the Verizon elements, and if you've looked at the photo simulations that are part of your package, you'll see that the antennas are no higher than the face of the building to which they are attached. And that's in each of the 4 corners, so that the antennas are both flush to the building itself, and then the tips of the antennas are kind of even with the height of the structure to which they are attached. If it would be helpful, if I can share screen privileges, I'll run through a few of the pages from our photo simulation on the theory that a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's something that I can do.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hildreth. That's perfect. Fine. Thank you, sir.
Can you guys see the picture that I'm showing here now? This is 23 of these photos. I don't think it's necessary to go through all of them. This first one is just the cover page, and it shows the actual Verizon antennas located right here. My little hand is working properly. And I just point out that while you're viewing this streetscape, there's another building over here that's got a similar set of antennas on perhaps its elevator penthouse. When you run through these pictures, the first one shows that there were 11 different vantage points where the AOT garage was photographed from. And this bird's eye view also gives you a sense for where the AOT garage is relative to the Songus Arena and the other improvements in the area. And then for each location where a picture was taken, there is an existing conditions as shown here. And then there's the antennas are plotted in place using this photo simulation modeling software. So here the antennas are on this corner. You can see them, painted to blend in with their background. I'll just run through a few more vantage points to show you the same thing. Here's a corner where there are antennas on both this side and the side that is 90 degrees away. This one's kind of obscured by the foliage and other elements in the streetscape. This is a good view of the fact that the antennas are no taller than the wall to which they are attached. Likewise here's 2 sides that are involved in this building, and this vantage point, and here as well. In here, for example, you can see this is kind of more of a gray concrete versus the red brick, and we're using kind of custom finish on each face, on each of the different sides to blend in with the background to which they are attached. Some of these vantage points are further away and they're not as meaningful as the ones that were closer up. And I think this is the one that also serves as our cover page that was way at the beginning. So aside from those details, the site will operate like every other Verizon wireless and every other wireless carrier's communications facilities. It's unmanned. It will be visited about once a month by a field technician who will just check on the equipment. So it won't have any impact on city services. And we do spend some time in our cover letter kind of walking through provisions of the city's master plan and showing how improving telecommunications and wireless broadband access and so forth, especially in the downtown district, is a goal of the city that this installation certainly speaks towards and will help move us in that direction. I'd be pleased to answer any questions that folks may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hildreth, for that summary of your project.
Sure.
Now we'll move on to the public portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Now we're going to open up questions and comments from the board. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I actually, strangely enough, don't have any questions. I think as Mr. Hildreth had mentioned, one of my concerns, which he addressed, is the fact that, the air rights to the antennas, that it doesn't supersede the height of the building, which would be a main concern, and also the aesthetics of the antennas, that it doesn't impede the other buildings there, where it would impact any viewership or anything of that nature. Other than that, I think it's fairly simple from this perspective. So I don't have any opposition at this point or any questions. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any issues with this either. I mean, quite frankly, all my years on the board, very, very rare that we've had these telecommunications, special permits for telecommunications come up. And I've always been curious how they hide or camouflage the antennas, Mr. Hildreth, on these things. And this is fantastic the way it's done. It just blends right into the building. Wouldn't even notice it unless it goes over the top of it, which it doesn't. It's not. I don't think it's going to be any disturbance to anything. So, the more we advance into a 5G world, more antennas and telecommunications it's going to be necessary. So I really don't see any issues with this. It seems pretty straightforward, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Very thorough presentation. I just I'm trying to understand if we lose any parking spaces. The plan on sheet 12 indicates that we're coming off the wall of the building on the 5th floor by about 2 feet, and then there's some bollards being put in. So I'm guessing maybe it's 4 feet. Does that require us to lose 2 parking spaces on the 5th floor on the roof?
My understanding is that it's costing 1 space Mr. McCarthy, there's another fellow with me on the meeting tonight, Brian Ross, who is the site acquisition consultant who has crawled over the garage more than I have, and maybe he could answer that question in specific. What page is that, by the way? I've called it up on my screen.
Well, as I scroll through the report, it comes up as 12 of 122.
A3.
A3.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Brian, can you speak to that issue then of are we using a parking space for that fourth floor
So
location?
on the fourth floor, Mr. McCarthy, you were speaking about the fourth floor on the left side of the page, or the plan of the fifth floor, where it appears that we're going to be taking up approximately, I would say, 3 feet of the ends of each of those spaces for the compact car parking.
On the fourth floor, we're in the corner of the building, correct? So we're probably not taking any spaces away. Is that correct?
Yes, to my knowledge, that is correct. Your concern is regarding the fifth floor parking, where the bollards are going to be approximately 3 feet off of the wall.
And the spaces are already compact, which means they're about 16 feet deep already? The current spaces?
I believe so. Yep.
Well, could you revise the plan and just make it clear as to how many spaces we're losing with this? I just see that as something that's important for everyone to be on the same page with, because parking is always a premium downtown and expensive when you have to pay for parking structures. So
Certainly, we can revise the plans to show that.
and so you think that we'll be losing up to 3 spaces or 2?
No, they're not intended to lose any. The intention was to put the equipment far enough back in the spaces so that they're still usable spaces, but for compact cars only. That was the discussion with the facilities manager of the garage.
I love that answer. That's what I would have expected, that they're probably standard 18-foot deep spaces and you're going to convert them to maybe 15 feet deep and call them compact.
I think that's correct.
All right. And if we can just add that information to the plan to make sure that we're being clear as to the fact that you are not losing any spaces from the parking structure other than the depth, which then creates compact spaces, but that's fine.
Right.
Perfect. That's all I had. Great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Like my colleague said, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. To me, it's kind of like a infrastructure, just, modernizing, making sure things are up to date in terms of telecommunication and broadband and all that stuff. So to me, it's pretty straightforward. I don't have any questions or concerns, and very, very well put together packet. I'm more of a visual guy. I'm not a lawyer or an architect like some of my colleagues. So I like a lot of pictures. So it made sense to me from a layman's perspective. So thank you, Mr. Hildreth and Mr. Ross. Sure. If we have no other questions or comments, we'll move forward for a vote. And Mr. Hildreth and Mr. Ross, if you weren't part of the discussion earlier, there's only 4 members tonight. So you would need a 4-0 approval across the board to get this project approved. Knowing that, would you like to go forward with a vote tonight, sir?
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make it clear that I think we should be asking for one condition, that the site plan A3 or floor plan, whatever you want to call it, be revised to show the changes to parking spaces being reduced from the full depth to compact spaces.
Yes, that makes sense. Mr. Hildreth, you in agreement with that condition, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Can we have a motion to for the petition, please?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-9 for a special permit for 47 Father Morset Boulevard, with a condition that site plan / floor plan A3 be revised to show the reduction in parking space depth from standard size to compact.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve with conditions?
Member Callahan,
Approve with conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with condition.
Member Prokop.
Approve with conditions.
All right, Mr. Hildreth, Mr. Ross, you've been approved with conditions. We wish your project the best of luck. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, just
Yeah,
want to make
go
a
ahead.
note. Member Briere, I just checked my phone. Member Briere had tried to reach out to me apparently before, well, right when the meeting was starting on my phone, sent me a message saying he was trying to log on to the Zoom, and he usually does it through telephone. Is requesting a passcode, which is never has before. Is there any possibility, Jess or Peter, that you can try to reach out to Member Briere and see if we can get him to log in?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, not sure what happened there. I know he usually calls into the Zoom, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what happened there, but if we can see if one of you can try to reach out to Member Briere and see if we can get him logged in, that'd be great.
Will do.
Thank you for that, Ms. Keller, and thank you, Ms. Wilson, for helping out with that endeavor. I had a similar issue as well when I called in, but I'm sure Mr. Briere will be on shortly. So going on to our next agenda item under new business, ZBA-2021-16, a special permit. The applicant is Agrigo Dojao Butcher Shop and Grocery, property located at 1695 Middlesex Street. Agrigo Dojao Butcher Shop and Grocery has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking special permit approval to install an internally illuminated sign. The property is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires special permit approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals under section 6.3 and any other relief required in the local zoning ordinance. Is there a representative from 1695 this evening?
Mr. Chairman, they missed their deadline on the abutters notice and they would like to request a continuance to the June 14th meeting.
All right, thank you for that information. Let's so we'll do a vote to continue this matter, ZBA-2021-16 to our next meeting on June 14th. Can we have a motion, please, to continue this matter?
Agree, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to make a motion to continue ZBA 2021-16 for a special permit for 1695 Middlesex Street to be continued to June 14th.
George Prokop, second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Prokop, to continue the matter to our June 14th meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve continuance to June 14th.
Member Callahan,
Approve continuance to June 14th, 2021.
Member McCarthy,
Approve continuance to June 14th, 2021.
Member Prokop.
Approve continuance to June 14th, 2021.
All right, that matter has been continued to our nenext meeting. Going ahead to our next item on the agenda, ZBA-2021-12. The petition is a special permit. The applicant is Victory Car Wash located at 14 Perry Street. Victory Car Wash has applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking special permit approval to install an internally illuminated sign. The property is located in the urban mixed use UMU zoning district and requires special permit approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals under section 6.3 and for any other relief required under the local zoning ordinance. Do we have a representative from Victory Car Wash here this evening?
Yes, my name is Brandon Courier from Barlow Signs. I'm located in Merrimack, New Hampshire, for the record.
Good evening, sir. Can you tell a little bit about your project this evening?
Yes, absolutely. It's good to see everybody again. I'm glad everybody's doing well. So I am here representing Victory Car Wash, located at 14 Perry Road. We're seeking approval for internal illumination for the new signage. With the building deeply set back across the parking lot and behind a row of trees, the internal illumination will help aid the wayfinding public from Andover and Church Street. The raceway and the letters are both 5 inches thick, totaling a projection of 10 inches. The business is open 24 hours a day. With that being said, we would like to keep the sign illuminated from dusk to dawn. And there are no residents in direct line of sight of this new sign that we are proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your summary of your project. Now we're going to open up the portion of the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We're going to open up questions and comments to the board now. The chair recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. This seems to make sense, especially where the building is situated back from the main street on Andover Street with the trees in front. So it's not really, and the only other business, the only business around is Gary's Topeka, which is right across the street, which I don't believe is going to have any effect on there. And quite frankly, I barely would even notice it was even a car wash without the signs there. And if this will be actually help people to locate the business and know what is actually there. I mean, you can tell it's a car wash, but with no signage, you don't know who owns it or who the proprietors are. And it makes total sense. And if it's 24 hours with the situation of the building, the trees in front blocking any illumination. I don't see any problems with it being illuminated dusk till dawn. But I'll see what my other fellow board members say about that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree that I don't really see a problem with this. And I appreciate the restraint to ask for almost half of the allotted sign area for your new signs. So I was just trying to look up, do you have a street sign that is on Church Street that draws people's attention to this location?
I'm taking a look here at the files that I have. I believe there's something in the works. I'm not 100% sure. I know that existing with the previous one, there was some sort of pylon sign, a shorter, like a directional style sign. But I'm not sure if that's moving forward. I believe this was just purchased by a new company.
Right, I don't, so, I mean, to me, that's where you would put your sign rather than on the building, only because I agree with Sean. I didn't know the car wash was there. So, but what you're asking for makes total sense as far as us approving internally illuminated sign this far back from the road, not really impacting any residents and meeting less than, or actually being less than half or about half the signage requirement in the area. So I was hoping your answer was, a clear, understanding as to what you're asking for, because I kind of expect that in a couple months, there's going to be a second kind of request for an internal illuminated pylon sign coming at us on the street. So, but
I apologize if I wasn't able to provide a clear answer to that. There is, like I mentioned, there is a sign there now, but you can't really see that from that main strip because of those trees. So,
yep, I agree. Okay. Well, with what we have in front of us, I see no reason not to go forward with this, so I am in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I agree with the fellow board members, Callahan and McCarthy. I think it only makes sense, and it would only enhance the visual of the property. And I did know there was a car wash there, but I never thought of stopping by.
You didn't tell us, George?
But you know, it's a very busy street, so I think the sign could be an attraction where you could potentially get more business, because you try to drive there now, you know, between 8 to 10 in the morning or 4 to 6 in the evening, and you know, it's a parking lot. And I'm sure when, you know, someone sees a sign, the light bulb may go on and say, "Oh, let me get my car wash." But I think it's simple. It's a simple request, so I have no objections.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. You know, like my colleague said, it's pretty straightforward in terms of, you know, marketing and in terms of visibility, in terms of you know, just highlighting your business. It makes sense to me. I knew that car wash was there. I usually use it just to go vacuum my car. But it makes sense, you know, the illuminations, the sign, you know, there's no one in opposition. So I you know, it's pretty straightforward. So I don't have any concerns. And, you know, I also wish you the best of luck with your business as well as we go forward.
Thank you. I'll pass it along to the owners. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll move, we'll have a motion for a vote, please.
Through you, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-12 for special permit for Victory Car Wash at 14 Perry Street to have an illuminated sign.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Callahan. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve.
Member Callahan,
Approved.
Member McCarthy,
Approve?
Member Prokop.
Approve.
All right, sir, you've been approved tonight for your special permit. Wish you the best of luck and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, moving on to our next agenda item under new business. ZBA-2021-13, the petition is a special permit. The applicant is Sonesta, property located at 30 Industrial Avenue East.
There is a typo here. I'm actually presenting for this one as well. That should read Sonesta instead of Victory Car Wash.
All right. Ms. Wilson, can you just look into that clerical error when you have a minute?
Yeah.
All right. The petition is applying to zoning board of appeal, seeking special permit to install and turn illuminated signage at 30 Industrial Ave East. The property is located in the high-rise commercial HRZ zoning district and requires special permit approval under section 6.3 and for any other relief required in the low zone ordinance. Good evening again, sir. Just tell us a little bit about your project.
Good evening. Again, Brandon Courier from Barlow Signs for the record, representing Sonesta, located at Industrial Ave East. Similarly, we're seeking approval for internal illumination. This is located very deeply set back from the main road. This sign will aid the wayfinding public to their destination. Most of the people coming to this location are going to be from out of the area, and having internal illumination, especially in the evening hours or late after a long car ride or traveling all day, will help the success of their arrival. This location will also be open 24 hours a day and would like to keep the signs illuminated from dusk to dawn. This raceway is 6 inches deep and the letters are 5. And that'll be totaling 11 inches of projection. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Now we'll open up the portion of the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Now we're going to open up questions, comments by the board. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to first make sure I heard you right. You're looking for hours of operation, again, dusk to dawn?
That is correct.
And that's because they receive guests?
Yes, this is a hotel.
And,
so
and
they'll be arriving at all times of the night.
All times of the night. Got it. Okay. I wasn't quite sure that that was the case. Okay.
Yep.
And you satisfied the dimension requirements for the projection, no more than 15, so you're under that. So nice looking graphics. Looks like it would be a success. I really don't see any issue in this location, especially. And I think that, again, you'll be aiding the wayfinding, keeping things as safe as possible. So I think I can support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think this is a no-brainer. Seeing that there aren't any hotels that are visible in Lowell, but major hotels. So I think this would be a great addition to people know that this is available. So I don't have any other questions. Any issues? I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Same here. I agree with both Member Prokop and Member McCarthy. This seems pretty straightforward. It's just, I guess, what a rebranding of the Courtyard Hotel to now Sonesta. It's a hotel. It's got to be open 24 hours. So I would see no problems with the illumination. Again, to your point, Brendan, the hotels, travelers that are coming in early in the morning, late at night, yes, you gotta. It's not Motel 6 where you leave a light on, but I mean, they gotta find a way to get there.
That is very true.
Yep. So I see no problems with this. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Like my colleague said, this is pretty straightforward. In terms of branding, marketing, upgrading. It's if I saw a hotel in the middle of the night, it wasn't lit up, I would think it's closed. So this completely makes sense. I don't have any questions or concerns either. If we have no more questions or comments, let's move this to a motion and to a vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-13 special permit for the applicant Sonesta at 30 Industrial Ave East for an internally illuminated signage.
I second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve.
Member Callahan,
Approved.
Member McCarthy,
Approve.
Member Prokop.
Approve.
All right, sir, you've been approved. Again, wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming out this evening and have a good night.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda under new business. ZBA-2021-14. The petition is a special permit. The applicant is Will Souza and Don Garcia, excuse me. The property located at 23 Cabot Street, 616 to 666 Merrimack Street, 591 to 639 Market Street. Will Sousa and Don Garcia have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals, seeking special permit approval to construct a mixed-use building consisting of 32 dwelling units and approximately 35,000 square foot of commercial space, as well as a parking structure at 23 Cabot Street, 616 to 666 Merrimack Street, and from 591 to 639 Market Street. The property are located in the Urban Neighborhood Mixed Use UMU zoning district and requires site plan review approval from the planning board pursuant to section 11.4 and special permit approval from the zoning board of appeals pursuant to section 12.9E and for any other relief required under the low zoning ordinance. Is there a representative for the petition tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Attorney William Martin, offices at 491 Dutton Street in Lowell on behalf of the petitioner applicant. A number of other people involved with the project here tonight from Hancock Engineering. Brian Goodrow is here, as is Russ Tedford, and project developer Will Susi is here, and also project consultant, project manager Steve Jonkus. So we're hopeful that with those various professionals involved with the project would be able to answer and satisfy any concerns you have. I just did want to make a few highlights and then maybe turn over to Brian Goodrow at Hancock for some of the more specifics about density and whatever. But we did receive the staff comment letter. As I think you know, there are two significant buildings proposed for this site. One would be an office building to be occupied by Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union, a business that's been operating in the acre for well over 100 years now, closer to 110 than it is to 100. And they're continuing to expand in the acre, and that would be the user of the office building. As you know, Jeanne d'Arc previously occupied a couple buildings on this site, and it's our intention to follow through on some of the commitments we made through the Federal Reserve study and what we're going to do to improve the neighborhood. So we wanted a signature project beyond what we need for our own office building needs. And that's where the second building comes in. That's going to be for owner-occupied condominium use, 32 units with retail or in retail uses on the first floor. So the office building's approximately 35,000 or so square feet. When you add in the retail units to the 32 units in the residential building, it's about 50,000 square feet. And in between, there would be a parking structure constructed, 2 decks that would serve both buildings. The parking structure is a little unique and adapted specifically for this site so that because of the shift in grade from Merrimack to Market Street, you would drive in on Merrimack Street, and that first floor would serve the office building, and the upper deck would be accessible from Market Street, and that would serve the residential retail building. So it's kind of making use of the grade and maximizing the parking available on site. It may seem like there's quite a bit of relief being requested from density requirements, but I think as the staff letter points out, that's somewhat necessary to create the signature project we're looking for in the acre. And it's also, if I could point out, the project, if it were designed all as one lot, we would not really need relief from the lot area per dwelling unit, from floor area ratio, from side yards. All those things we would meet if we could treat this all as one ownership. But because of the need to finance the residential buildings separately, We're going to have a lot line somewhere, down not the middle of this site. It's going to be more like 30% of the site will be used for the residential piece. And so that creates the need for some of this relief. We're very close on the floor area ratio. If you consider the whole site, we're at, under 2. But the residential building alone, depending on how big that lot gets to be, if it's 13,500 feet, we make it as 3.9. But if it ends up having to be a little smaller, say at 13,000 square feet, we would need relief. So we've tried to maximize the relief we're requesting to not have to come back. And we can answer specific questions about each of the items in the staff letter. But I just did want to point out that, if you consider the site as a whole, it supports this level of development. It's because of our need to finance it a little creatively that we've created the need for some of the relief we're seeking. Some of the relief we would need no matter what. We would need relief from the loading and some of the landscaping. It's not that we don't intend to do any landscaping, but we are at a top floor of a concrete parking deck, so that creates some challenges as to what type of landscaping we're going to be able to build on the top of a parking garage. It's really a parking garage and not a parking lot where you can have the typical islands and things like that. So that's the reason for some of that relief. So I don't want to go on too long, but I did want to just make those few highlights. And Brian, I don't know if you have anything to add about size of buildings or anything in general, but we're here to answer the questions of the board. And I'd offer Brian some remarks.
Yeah, so I'll share the site plan quickly. So for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. This is the site plan that we have submitted to this board. And it highlights the development as a whole too. So to just dovetail on what Attorney Martin described, I'd like to just quickly run through the configuration of the site. So Merrimack Street is up to the north, Market Street is to the south, connected by Cabot to the west. And we're basically taking the end corner of this entire block, and we're putting 2 buildings and a parking garage. There's a commercial building along Merrimack Street and a residential building along Cabot Street. The residential building is 32 units and the commercial space is about 32,000 square feet. So the intent is to have storefront on Merrimack, and then Cabot will just be windows essentially, not getting access to the residential building. The residential building will be accessed kind of in the upper parking deck. So the parking garage itself is 2 tiers. And as Attorney Martin indicated, the lower tier is accessible off of Merrimack Street, and that's going to be for those commercial spaces. There's 77, I believe, parking spaces on the lower deck, 76 on the upper deck. The upper deck is going to be exclusive for the residential and will be accessed off Market Street. Now, there is a small corner of the site that is not going to be occupied by structure, and what our thoughts are for that portion is twofold. One, to provide our required stormwater management. So there's going to be an underground stormwater system there. We've already been in coordination with Lowell Regional Wastewater and Mike Stewart's team to make sure that we are fully conforming to both the City of Lowell stormwater requirements as well as DEP. And we're conforming to both of those. Key point being, this is an area of the city that has a combined sanitary and storm sewer system. So we're really trying to treat and manage stormwater on site, reduce the volumes as much as we can before discharging into that combined system in the city. Now, another kind of key point I'd like to touch on is with respect to landscaping. So we are proposing landscaping in the limited areas that we do not have structure, essentially, on site. And we've also began our process of coordinating with DPD and city staff to develop a comprehensive neighborhood plan, and we're actually applying for a MassWorks grant. So we're applying to state monies on behalf of the city of Lowell to be able to beautify this entire neighborhood. We're going to look at transportation improvements at the intersection of Cabot, Adams, and Market Street, the intersection of Merrimack and Cabot Street, to see if there are things that we can do as a part of this project to really transform the neighborhood. So we are providing landscaping to the degree that we can, and those plans are in flux a little bit as we work with the city to really figure out what Market, what Merrimack, what Cabot Street are ultimately going to look like. We've talked about potentially introducing landscape islands within the right-of-way and be able to install street trees and potentially improve stormwater management within the right-of-way itself. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, but kind of the bottom line is we're trying to provide as much landscaping as we can, both on city land within the right-of-way, as well as the areas that we do have earmarked for green space. Attorney Martin did kind of go over the fact that this is a parking structure, so we do not have landscaping within the parking kind of lot itself, and that is strictly because it's concrete and steel. There are no opportunities to really introduce trees and landscaping requirements. Back last summer, when we started coordinating with DPD, we kind of talked about how parking structures were viewed with respect to the zoning ordinance, and it was kind of a gray area where, yes, this is a parking lot, but it's also a parking structure. So we're asking for the relief at a necessity of how to get parking for the site. We are fully conforming to parking space count. We have 152 spaces provided for 129 as required. So we are providing what we need. And with respect to other utilities, again, we've reached out to Lowell Water to make sure that we have water. We have concurrently filed with Planning Board for our site plan approval. So we have that in process as well. And I guess to kind of just summarize Attorney Martin's key points, we're really asking for relief as a necessity for the dual funding of the two uses, the residential piece versus that commercial piece. And if you look at there's a dashed line that's running kind of parallel with the residential building. That's our proposed lot line. So that line that's essentially running at the face of the building and interior to the parking structure is what's creating kind of those yard variances. Again, we've developed full site plan here, full stormwater. If the board has any technical questions, I'm happy to answer it. And with that, Mr. Chair, thank you. We're happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Goudreau, and thank you, Councilor Martin, for your summary of the project. So we'll move forward to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Now we're going to open up questions or comments from the board. The chair recognizes Mr. Prokop. Mr. Prokop, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. It's a very in-depth proposal. Well done. I think from my perspective, in looking, at the plan on a whole, I think the department was concerned about the landscaping, which, was addressed tonight. I think it's a great project, 40 acre. I mean, since Jean-Dac moved out of that property, I mean, it's been an eyesore being so abandoned. So I like the project. I'm not sure if I have any opposition, but I would like to see, I know you mentioned, Brian, that the landscaping is a little in flux. It would be great if I could see that, so I could, especially the fact that you're having, residential section there as well. But other than that, I think I would leave it to my other board members if there are any additional questions. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop. The chair recognizes Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of questions with regards to the layout a little bit, mostly on the residential side. I'm looking at the plans for the residential units, and I'm trying to figure out what is it exactly that is being proposed here. You said 32 units, and I can see, I guess, 8 units on 4 floors, if I'm not mistaken. But you got some units that look like they're 2 bedrooms and other units that are just blank. What are those proposed to be? Are they proposed to be, what, studio apartments, or what? There's no like indication of what they are.
So the 32 units is a total of 60 bedrooms, so it'll be a mix. And I don't know exactly where the breakdown is, but we have broken it down. By unit, and on the architecturals, there are specific unit styles.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that, but you got these ones that are labeled Unit E, Unit D, Unit B, and Unit A that have no style layout at all.
Right.
I have no idea. I'm not sure what the plans are for that. I mean, whether they're.
Brian, this is Don Bladster with Cole Architecture.
Hi.
Brian, I'm out of Guilford, New Hampshire, and Stephen Chung is also here for the project. The plans that you see were, again, progress plans that were ended up being submitted and are not the latest plans that were there. If you don't mind me jumping in, Brian, is that all right?
Oh, feel free. And if you would like to screen share, latest and greatest.
I wasn't prepared for that, so I'm just gonna try to walk you through it. Basically, there are 32 units. We have the 2-bedroom units on the floors, and in the southern corner, the A and B units, which are not shown, are 3-bedroom units. So we have a mix of 6 on the floor, 2 bedrooms, 4 2-bedrooms, and then the 2 bedrooms, and then the 2 and then we have a total of 32 units. Like I said, we do have updated plans, they just were not sent in with this submission.
I'm sorry, can you actually repeat that, because your audio broke up and I want to make sure it's recorded accurately in the minutes.
Oh, okay. Apparently these are the latest plans, so maybe so these are the updated plans.
Yeah, so these are a newer set of plans that actually came out after our submission to the zoning board, so we can certainly submit these to DPD. But generally speaking, I guess they have been updated in detail.
Does this include the square footage of each unit? Because I don't see that listed either. And you mentioned 3 bedrooms on the A and B units. I mean, the way they're laid out, from what I can see, at least on the previous plans, that A unit doesn't look like it can even come close to fitting 3 bedrooms.
Yes, the bottom unit, the unit A and unit B are both 3-bedroom units.
Okay.
They're about.
Is the square footage of these units listed anywhere, or?
We did submit another plan with those square footage. The 2 bedrooms are around 1,000 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms, I believe, are 1,100 to 1,200 square
Okay.
feet.
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah,
Can I just jump?
Sure, Council.
Bill Martin
Yep.
again. I believe, so we had a filing deadline to get these plans in. Those are the ones that I think were dated March 5th that went to the zoning board. When we made the planning board filing, I think they had the updated plans were submitted with the planning board filing. So you members may not have gotten the benefit of the most recent drawings.
Okay.
I may not be, I think that's what happened here. So I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think the most recent drawings are with DPD. They just may not have made their way to you.
Okay. All right. That could be the possibility there. So where are they listed on the units? Well, I'm sorry. What were they? So the 2 3-bedroom units are 1,100 square feet, you said?
The 2 bedroom units are 1,000 square feet, and the 3 bedroom units, I believe, are 1,200 square feet. Hold on 1 second.
I believe that's right, Don.
Let me just switch to another computer here and.
Sorry, we got to chat. Is Stephen Chung with your group?
Yes. So Unit A is 1,254 square feet. Unit B is 1,281 square feet, and there's Unit D and C are average around 1,000 square feet, just over 1,000 square feet.
All right, that makes more sense. Sorry. I started in the chat and Mr. Chung had asked.
Yep, that's me. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to help you. 1,280 of the 3 bedrooms.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I guess as long as these are on if those dimensions are on the updated plans, and the updated plans show the breakdown of the residential units. Okay, that kind of alleviates a little bit of what my concerns were, because I was looking at the previous submission that had units D, E, A, and B listed as blank with no dimensions on them as to what they were going to be.
Yeah, my apologies for not having those in sooner.
No worries. I mean, other than that, I really don't have much. I don't really have much concern. I mean, my concern was on the residential units and how big they were going to be, and that's been taken care of. The retail and the commercial, that seems pretty straightforward. And the layout and the parking. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, and that's actually it's a better way to do it. Obviously, with splitting it up between the commercial on Merrimack Street and the residentials coming into Cabot, on Cabot Street into Market Street. So at this point, I don't have any further questions or concerns, but I'll listen to my fellow board members and they circle back if I. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. The chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, the floor is yours, sir.
Dennis, you're muted.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to just do some basic housekeeping, maybe with Councilor Martin. What exactly, so the comments that we got, it's kind of unclear even from the city planner what you're asking for specifically. So, and you also kind of alluded to the fact that your site plan is a little unclear with the lot area, but there is a site plan that has a lot area listed. So, are we in a rush here? Is there a reason why we're trying to get all these things approved right now? Or is there a way we could possibly have answers to these questions and clear documentation that identifies what we're asking for with relief? so that we could understand it.
So yes, we do have a little bit of timing pressure. And that is, the application deadline for the MassWorks grant that we talked about. And also one of the subsidy programs that we hope to rely on for the residential units to make those more affordable as owner occupied units has a June 1st deadline for application. So that's part of the reason this may seem a bit rushed, but I don't know. I think we can get you pretty satisfied as to what we're looking for. We're in the board comment letter, we are seeking relief for lot area per dwelling unit. We definitely need that.
What relief are you asking for exactly?
So reduction, so it's 1,000 square feet is required, right? And if we draw the line about where Brian said, we really are going to be less than half of what's required. We're probably at like 422 or so per dwelling unit on that lot. I also said, if you consider the site as a whole, we wouldn't need relief from that at all. We would make it, but because of the way we have to finance this, we definitely need relief for lot area per dwelling unit. And there's the same rationale applies to floor area ratio on that same site. So again, the floor area ratio, if you consider the site as a whole, we're less than 2, right? But on this particular site where, depending on the final design and where that line gets drawn, which is dependent somewhat on construction issues, I think, it could be 3.9 or 4.1. So it's very close to being in compliance, but I think for us to be safe and be able to go to permit agencies and funding agencies, we need to have the relief from FAR. Those are the two, I think, that are mainly unknown. And the other issue that the staff had an issue on was the corner clearance, right? So we're going to be right on the property line here. And it's a question of where you measure to and from. But if you go from the edge of the building to the edge of the curb, we have the 15 feet, but that's not 15 feet of the property, right? So that's almost an internal issue, whether we would need that relief or not. But all of these things in a project this complex, funders are going to look at, and we thought it best to err on the side of seeking relief as opposed to not asking for something that we might end up needing later. So I think those are the three issues that the staff had concern about, as well as the landscaping. And on the landscaping, we intend to do as much as we can. We just can't be held to a standard that a normal surface parking lot would be held to, because we're not a surface parking lot. It looks like that, but we're a parking garage, made of steel and concrete. So I think I don't know if that helps. I'll stop talking and let you follow up if I haven't been clear.
The document that you submitted has an FAR of 3.93 or something listed, but you're saying that document may not be accurate and that you need a relief from FAR up to 4.2. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That line could change the lot size by up to, say, 500 square feet. Unless somebody else wants to weigh in and tell me that things have been solidified since we made the filing.
No takers, I don't think.
So that line is, dependent on a few things that just haven't been able to be determined yet.
And you're kind of up against a deadline sometime in early June. And you need approvals from zoning and planning board prior to that deadline?
We have to be in process, which we are, with some reasonable likelihood of success. You know, so we have to make a good faith statement to these grant programs that we're well on our way to getting permits.
Okay. I love the project, and it's a huge, home run for the city if we can get this there in that location. The specifics are fuzzy, and I'm a little apprehensive of granting these open-ended. So, so for instance, you don't really have a dwelling unit area number, right? 1,000 square feet is required, but lot area per dwelling unit, you don't really have a number there that you can tell us that you're going to be no less than or no more than, or?
Well, I would say it's, it's 420. If I'm doing the math right. So that lot, go ahead.
I don't want to hold things up. And if we have to get some conditions here, maybe the FAR is going to be no more than 4.2, and the lot area per dwelling unit is going to be no less than 420 square feet per dwelling unit. Are those conditions that we could potentially link to this, just to get some parameters as to where you're headed?
I believe so, yes. I think certainly the 4.2 and FAR, I feel pretty comfortable with that. The lot area per dwelling unit, it's 1,000. We have like one of the other team members to do some quick math on that. But if the lot is 13,000 square feet, and we have 30.
That's 406 is 13,000. So 420 puts us at 13,440 per square feet. So to be comfortable, I would say no less than 406 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit, and that will give us the flexibility that we need to define that residential lot.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I was intrigued by the idea of the neighborhood receiving some landscaping and improvements as a way of creating a solution for not having landscaping on your lot to the extent that's required by zoning. Can you speak to how we could condition that you'll be developing a comprehensive neighborhood plan or whatever it's called?
Perhaps, there'd be a comprehensive landscape plan for the property and the adjacent public ways that met with staff approval. We want it to look nice, we want it to be something that's attractive for purchasers and for the neighborhood. So it's not like we don't plan to do anything. We certainly do plan to have some things, but we don't know what the Mass Works grant's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be all geared toward traffic improvements, sidewalk improvements, streetlights, or if we get it at all.
Would it be helpful to give you some visuals to show you design intent without necessarily saying this is exactly what it's going to be, but this is our hope. This is what we hope to achieve. Would that be okay?
It absolutely would be. However, I just want to try to do what I think as a board member should be doing with these comments from the city, and make sure that we have conditions going forward that make sense for the comments that were provided for us, and the time frame that you're under as far as supporting this project. But before you do that, the last one is loading. We don't have any loading going on the site at all. So people moving furniture in at the elevator are doing it off of Cabot Street or Merrimack Street, is that right?
Not
No, they would
quite.
have to do it, yeah, internal to the parking garage. So residential, the loading area is the drive aisle of the upper parking deck, essentially. And it's just gonna have to be coordinated, with who's in the parking lot at that point in time.
Does that present a safety issue? I guess I'd ask Jess or Dylan, whoever is on the call here from the planning, if we have any comments on fire safety, if we've got a loading van of some type occupying the drive aisle while we potentially have an event.
I don't believe we received any comments from fire, but we could certainly follow up with them and double check.
I mean, that seems rather unorthodox that you would, especially a facility with 32 units, you're going to have monthly, maybe even bi-weekly events of deliveries or people moving potentially. It seems like something that you probably just want to make sure we're not doing a safety issue, my opinion. I don't know if any of my fellow board members have any thoughts on that, but so that's where I was at with my trying to understand what you've given us to approve here or to try to move forward on, and the material that we have to kind of weed through from the comments. It's kind of deep.
Can I just respond to the fire department access?
Sure.
So I think, so the parking garages, as Brian mentioned, or the upper deck is for the residential units, and that has a elevator lobby that goes directly onto that parking deck, and that would be where you would be bringing in, it's designed for furniture and stuff to come through those, come through that door into that vestibule and then directly into the elevator. As far as fire department access, there, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the intent is that the fire department would be driving on top of the parking deck. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, correct. I mean, they have access to Market Street, Merrimack Street, and Cabot Street for the ladder trucks. I wouldn't imagine that the ladder trucks are going onto that upper deck, and certainly not into the lower commercial deck.
Because they wouldn't be able to have turning radiuses there. So the square footage and the design of the building would have to meet building codes requirements anyway. And that would not include having, any type of area increase for frontage on a street on that side, because it would not technically meet that accessibility requirement. They would have to pull hoses over the parking garage to get to that side of the building. So I don't think that's probably why there was no comments, assuming, because it really wouldn't be an issue for fire department access to that side of the building. Does that make sense?
That definitely helps me feel more comfortable with the unorthodox loading scenario there, but nonetheless, that's great. So if we could just go, Mr. Chung, to that presentation I think you had regarding.
Are you looking at the screen right now? Is there something showing up?
It is, yes. So
yeah, and I think I'm just going to pan across the building just so that you can sort of see the intent for the landscape. And again, I took some license here, but was hoping that we could add some street trees, some lighting. Obviously, we have lighting on the building. I think that I'm just marking sort of entries with some masonry, perhaps on the sidewalk area, and maybe we can sort of talk about what those sidewalk improvements might be. I'm not really showing any street furniture, but I think depending upon the use potentially, at the corner, we have potentially, we have a nice retail space, and who knows what that might be. But I mean, in an ideal world, maybe there's something that could have some seating with it. I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm just trying to give you kind of a sense of what that might look like. But anyway, I think it just gives you kind of intent, sort of design intent.
Okay.
If that's helpful for you.
Okay, and so I think Attorney Martin, we had talked about a condition that we would work on developing a comprehensive neighborhood landscape plan. But if we talk about neighborhood landscape plan, are we talking about just this corner, or are we moving beyond just this corner?
So the scope of what we've been in discussion with the city on is basically on Market Street from Suffolk Street. There's a canal crossing that was just recently done, brand new sidewalks. You have your bike lane down there. So basically tying into those improvements down to Cabot Street, then down Cabot Street, and then down Merrimack Street to essentially the alleyway, the adjacent building, the end of the commercial space, and redoing all of those sidewalks. Second to that are the transportation improvements. The preliminary traffic study that's being conducted right now at the intersection of Adams, Cabot, and Market, as well as the Merrimack and Cabot Street intersections. We're looking at things like signaling, pedestrian bump outs to create places for safe harbor on the crosswalks so that they're protected. And additionally, potentially creating landscape islands in areas that do not have metered parking, limited, but also trying to introduce some green space in those as well. In the graphic that you're looking at, the street lighting and site trees or street trees, those are all part of that plan. It's very much in flux right now. Our submission deadline is next Friday, so we're trying to scramble those details together right now. But we've had a number of meetings with city staff and have kind of, we can say with confidence that those are the areas that we're targeting.
Yeah, Bill, hold on one second, okay? Hi, this is Will Susi, and Bill Martin's trying to get in, but he was bumped out. Can you let him back into the meeting?
Yes, I can do that. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'll set that.
Okay, well, that's a great goal to take care of that whole area as a comprehensive plan. So I think I have 3 conditions here that I'd like to see us move forward with, but one being the FAR, the second is dwelling unit, lot area dwelling unit ratio, and then the third about the developing the comprehensive neighborhood landscape plan. So with that, I think I could support this in approval for tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. You know, I actually think this is an amazing project for not just for downtown, but for the city as a whole. You know, to me, this is a project that's going to bring a lot of attention, a lot of potential residents, and it's going to add to our, you know, housing need in the city and everywhere else, kind of throughout the Commonwealth and beyond. You know, I really think, you know, in terms of the relief you're seeking, it is on its surface seems like a lot. And I do agree that I think with the potential funding and it's end of the fiscal year, and you know there's some grant requirement deadlines, and you know you have a lot of collaboration and partnerships, so there's a lot of moving parts. You know, I want to, you know, support this as much as I can. So you know I don't see any issues for me. So I'm going to vote in favor. So you know, like I said, I think this is a good project for the city as a whole. Councilor Martin, you heard the comments of the board. We did have 3 conditions. Are you okay with those conditions? And then if you are, we'll move forward with a vote tonight. And there's only 4 members, so you will need 4 in favor for this petition to pass. Councilor Martin, I think you're muted, sir.
You're muted.
Okay, so, sorry. So the conditions are an FAR not higher than 4.2, lot area per dwelling unit not less than what was the number?
406.
Okay, and then a landscape plan that the staff would have with staff on? Is that?
Correct. Yep.
Fair? Think we can live with those, sure, that'd be great. So we appreciate the.
Before we do,
well-
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple other questions. I just want to clarify just a couple things that came across. So with regards to parking, I know you got the 2 levels, one downstairs for the commercial, one's designated upstairs for residential. What's the plans for the residential as far as, is it, I presume that's just going to be only for the tenants and tenants only, right? What are the plans with regards to possibly making sure that nobody that's not a tenant parks in that area, because it's a second level? Are you planning to put a gate in or something to that effect to restrict people who are not residents from parking up there?
Yes, we plan to do that.
Okay. I don't know if that's something we could probably add as a condition just to make sure.
What happened to my parking garage here?
Yeah, we definitely will do something to stop them from people, the outsiders just parking there.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that we're clear. So the bottom area would be the regular public parking technically for use of the building, or is that going to be restricted to just the employees of John Dark that work in the building? Because
That's correct.
Well, you
Yeah,
have other residents, but you're going to have other retail. Well, is it other retail that's going to be there, or is it a John Dark branch plus office space plus something else?
It's not a branch, it's a back room office space, and that's for the credit union parking downstairs. The retail and the residential will be upstairs on the top deck.
Okay, but you're going to have other retail there as well on the corner end, I believe, right?
Right, correct.
So is retail going to be available to park in that space as well? I mean, the whole thing's going to be retail commercial, correct? Is that that's what the plan is, right?
That's correct.
Okay. No, I got no problems with that. It just crossed my mind that you had two separate areas for parking, one for the residential and one for the commercial retail. I just want to make sure that plans are made to make sure that the residential parking is restricted to the residents only, because you don't want to run into issues where residents show up and there's a big event or there's something going on, or the people who are working in the building can't find parking in the commercial lot and decide to go upstairs and cover residential spaces when they're not supposed to be. So I'm not sure if my fellow board members are in agreement with that. I would like, we can add that as a condition if you have no problems with it. I think that's something that probably needs to be made clear as well. But, a gate, some restrictions to the upstairs with residential parking.
That's correct. Certainly be done.
So, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Callahan. So if there's no other comments or questions from the board, we'll move forward with a vote for the petition.
Okay, is this a vote for the special permit or a vote for the special permit and variances as one vote, or do we do 2 separate votes?
We usually do 2 separate votes, one for the special permit and one for the variance.
So I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-14 for a special permit at 23 Cabot Street, 616 to 666 Merrimack Street, 591 to 639 Market Street, with the following 4 conditions: that the FAR not exceed 4.2, that the dwelling unit lot area not be less than 406 square feet per unit, and that there be a comprehensive neighborhood improvement plan to include landscaping to be developed and to meet staff approval. And the 4th condition is that a security gate be provided at the upper deck to secure the residential parking.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Callahan. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve with conditions.
Member Callahan,
Approve with conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Member Prokop.
Approve with conditions.
All right, Councilor Martin, you've been approved your special permit with conditions. Now we'll move forward for vote for the variance.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZBA 2021-14 for variance for 23 Cabot Street, 616 to 666 Merrimack Street, 591 to 639 Market Street for variances with the pre-mentioned four conditions.
I second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Prokop. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Peck,
Approve of conditions.
Member Callahan,
Approve with conditions.
Member McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Member Prokop.
Approve with conditions.
All right, Councilor Martin, you've been approved for your special permit and variance. Wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming out this evening. Have a good evening, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda. Under other business, we have minutes for approval for May 10th. Do we have any comments, edits, or any from the board regarding the minutes for May 10th?
Another fine job done.
All right, seeing none, can we have a motion to approve the minutes for May 10th, please?
Through Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 10th, 2021.
Well, second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. Callahan. Can we have a roll call, please, for the minutes?
Member Peck,
Approve the minutes.
Member Callahan,
Approve the minutes for May 10th, 2021.
Member McCarthy,
Approve the minutes for May 10th, 2021.
Member Prokop.
Approve minutes for May 10th, 2021.
All right, that's the end of the agenda. We have no other questions or comments from the board.
Just
From
one quick,
anybody?
just one quick comment, Jess. I noticed when I pull the agenda off the agenda minutes website that our last few meeting minutes that we've approved have not been posted up there. I think from going back until April. So
Okay, we'll make sure those get posted.
make
Thank you.
sure those get up there. I mean, just for the public's view. We've already approved them, but I mean, if that's what the purpose of the website is, for the public view, just make sure they get up there. So. About it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Callahan. Any other comments or anything from the board before we adjourn? All right, seeing none. Mr. McCarthy, can we have a motion to adjourn, please, if you don't mind, sir?
Yep, through Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. McCarthy to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Prokop. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, and you say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you all, folks. Meeting adjourned. Thank you and have a good night.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
You
same to
too.
You
All
too.
right.
Thank you, folks. Have a good weekend. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye.